Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Rogue Trader with me, Bregadon. Let's solve this valve puzzle, or try to anyway. Nothing is happening. Perhaps turning a different valve will work. So it does point us in the right direction at least.
Money to be made?
Now, I do have a sinking feeling about having spared the lower deck workers, because if we manage to find a heretical amulet, I guarantee that's just on the surface. Because if that's here, that means the heresy's already spread its roots throughout the lower decks.
I always keep my options open.
Alright, we can't interact with that one a second time. So it is a linear puzzle. We'll try this one again because it didn't give us that message.
Rise to the top or get left in the dust.
So the problem I'm facing in this playthrough is trying to make decisions based on my personal morals and those of Warhammer 40,000. And very rarely can you be a good guy in Warhammer 40k without repercussions.
Have a backup plan.
A lot of explosives. That doesn't bode well. Why do the lower deck workers have that?
Keep your wits about you.
Stopping unexpectedly, Abelard imperiously dismisses the unit to stand at a distance, and addresses your other companions, saying, I have an urgent matter to discuss with the Lord Captain. Please give us a moment. Abelard looks at you, and his last vestiges of restraint vanish. Well, are you pleased with your investigation, Lord Captain? You kowtowed the disloyal rabble. You believe their lies and show them leniency. Next time the ship is attacked by cultists, that rabble will welcome them with open arms and allow them to wreak whatever havoc they like, because they see you as a weak leader. Is that how you see your future at the helm of the Von Valancius Protectorate? There is some truth to your criticism. I should say so. Abelard heaves a sigh, but he visibly relaxes. You simply needed to trust me. I would have handled the situation myself had you not decided to intervene, Abelard says irascibly. Remember, Lord Captain Theodora, do you think she ever set one slippered foot on the lower decks? No, she did not. Such matters are left to myself and the junior officers, while she dedicated herself to her grand designs for the Protectorate, as any true strategist and rogue trader ought. I would be only too willing to trust in my seneschal, and not fill my head with such matters, but the situation had spiraled out of your control, Abelard. Abelard's face relaxes slightly. You're right. At least this concerns junior officers making complaints directly to you. And Abelard stands straight at attention. I lost my temper, Lord Captain, and I believe I ought to explain myself. Abelard speaks slowly, the words not coming easily to him. The prosperity of the Von Valancius Protectorate is not just an empty phrase to me. I left the Imperial Navy for the chance to see it flourish. It was the most momentous decision of my life. I did it because I saw in Lord Captain Theodora's neat deeds the sign of true greatness. Rogue traders do not simply forge new routes and capture worlds. They create order out of anarchy. That creative impulse was entirely lacking during my time in the military. So I left behind everything I had known, everything my family had known. I come from a long line of officers, and I embarked upon this incredibly reckless venture. Lord Captain Theodora entrusted me with all the concerns she had no time for. She would go off on her flagship for long periods, to distant frontiers, on scouting voyages, and the advancement of the entire Protectorate rested on my shoulders. And then suddenly, everything that had been built over years and years began to quake, rattling like a flimsy hanger on a seismically active world. One of the senior officers betrayed us all. The rogue trader was killed, and who knows what is happening on the planets. I tell you this honestly, without fear of appearing weak. All this has come as a grievous blow to me. I am not panicking or grieving, because I cannot allow myself to panic or grieve. I am duty-bound to aid the new rogue trader, to aid you, to find your footing as quickly as possible. And to do that, I must insulate you from problems that in the past have been dealt with by tried and tested procedures set out in the ship's regulations. Procedures that were established long ago, that functioned smoothly for decades, cannot suddenly be deemed excess to requirements. Option 3 or 4. They kind of say the same thing. I think option 3 insinuates I want him to tell me when things like this arise, and I am leaning towards that. The prosperity of the Von Valancius Protectorate is just as important to me. You're the only person who has a comprehensive knowledge of how things are run on this ship. I think in the future, I will follow your recommendations. Abelard dips his head in a sign of assent. The shadow of incredible strain, which evidently had been wearing on him for some time, finally lifts from his face. I'm glad you see the value in the foundations laid down by your illustrious predecessor. Why fix what isn't broken? As for me, I shall endeavor not to cause you any further consternation, Lord Captain. And now, please, let us leave the lower decks. If the rogue trader desires to stretch his legs, there are far more suitable places. Plus, Cassius said we could trust Abelard with our life, so no reason not to. Every commissar needs his Jurgen. Shame Abelard's spec is a warrior. I wouldn't mind giving him a Melta at some point. But he's set up too well to be a melee fighter.
Lord Captain. Lord Captain.
We did level up. We have here, choose an ability. Oh, we haven't seen these yet, so get back in the fight. The officer encourages an ally who immediately recovers from burning, bleeding, toxin, and stun effects. If the target is under the effect of Voice of Command, they also gain temporary wounds. Air of Authority. The officer increases an ally's resolve until the end of combat. If the target is under the effect of Voice of Command, they'll start their next turn with one additional action point. Move, move, move. The officer immediately grants an ally additional movement points equal to their fellowship bonus. If the target is under the effect of Voice of Command, it ignores attacks of opportunity until the end of the officer's turn. Break their ranks. This ability can only target allies who have enemies adjacent to them. Oh, that's right, we had that one talent that lets you add +1 enemy to the count. So even if there's not an enemy beside them, you can still use it. Until the start of the officer's next turn, all melee attacks made by the target deal additional damage equal to the fellowship bonus divided by 2, multiplied by the number of enemies adjacent to the target when this ability is used. If the target is under the effect of Voice of Command, they immediately make an attack of opportunity against an adjacent enemy, targeting the one with the lowest remaining wounds. And take aim. The target's next attack will ignore cover and will have double the effective distance. If the target is under the effect of Voice of Command, this attack will ignore enemy dodge. Additionally, the damage from this attack can't be reduced below a certain percentage for any reason. So I like Air of Authority. Resolve lets us build our momentum faster, which means we can use our Heroic Axe more often. And we could give them an additional action point. I don't know if I'm going to have more ranged or melee companions in my party. So I don't know if I could prioritize one of these over the other. They both seem pretty good. You only get one more ability, so I have to keep that in mind. Well, either way, I think Air of Authority is the best option right now, so let's grab that. And a talent. Common talent at that, but we can grab... I think Tenacity would be worth it. Being able to outright ignore a crowd control effect is just way too good. Plus you get 20% temporary wounds on top of it. Yeah, let's go Tenacity, just because it's way too good. Then I'll probably grab Summary Execution next. Followed by Motivation. But I hate being crowd controlled, so... Oh, we get an ability for Cassia. A lot of stuff. So she has the officer abilities, of course. And then she also has her navigator abilities. Like Glimpse of Fate. The target gains % increase hit chance on their next attack, dodge on their next dodge, and resistance on their next resistance test. Each of these bonuses disappear independently from each other after being successfully applied. Now we've seen Mend Reality, Reveal the Light. Right, have we seen this? The Navigator decreases Veil Degradation by willpower bonus points. All allies gain a bonus willpower... I said bonus already. Willpower bonus deflection against all warp damage and damage from psychic powers until the end of the Navigator's next turn. Reveal the Light. The target ally gains the Navigator's willpower bonus to their willpower and toughness until the end of combat. Seems pretty good. Show the Path. This ability can only target allies that have at least one melee weapon in one of their weapon sets. The target immediately gains an additional turn during which they gain the ability to use charge and only this ability. So, if it's a character that doesn't have charge as an ability, do they gain access to it for that turn? Vigil Beyond Time. The first use on any target marks it with the under the Navigator's Watch effect. Well, they need the in there twice. The enemy targets must pass a willpower resistance test to avoid this. The second use returns the target to the position where it was during the first use, and restores its wounds to the state they were at during that time. Seems pretty good. If this cell is occupied or unreachable from their current position, they move to the next closest cell in the direction of the Navigator. Held in my gaze. The Navigator deals damage to an enemy. That enemy must pass a willpower resistance test or become immobilized until the start of the Navigator's next turn. Immobilized targets do not regain movement points at the beginning of their turn. They cannot use abilities that move them or add movement points. Immolate the Soul. It deals damage to all targets in line in A line or in line of sight. I'm guessing in A line. And inflicts the Soul Burn effect. Soul Burn, target suffers damage at the start of their turn. At the end of their turn, they must pass a willpower test to remove the flames. When burning, Psykers suffer additional damage every time they use psychic powers, and demons every time they attack or use psychic powers. Scourge of the Red Tide. Creates a 3x3 zone. Every creature that is in it, enters it, or begins their turn in the area suffers damage. The zone remains for 3 rounds or until the Navigator casts it again. Waking Nightmare. All enemies within a 4-cell radius circle suffer a penalty to their willpower and toughness until the end of combat. Warp Curse Unleashed. The enemy becomes cursed until the end of combat. And cursed, all incoming warp damage is increased by a percentage, and other types of incoming damage are also increased by a percentage. At the start of their turn, the enemy closest to them also becomes cursed. Notch of Purpose. The Navigator designates a square. The enemy closest to that square immediately moves up to 4 cells toward it. If multiple enemies are the same distance from that point, all of them move. Targets move even if they are stunned or immobilized. Point of Curiosity. All enemies in a 6-cell radius around the target point must pass a willpower resistance test or immediately move 3 cells toward that point. The targets move even if they are stunned or immobilized. Spot of Apathy. The Navigator creates a circle with a 3-cell radius. Any creature that is inside it, enters it, or ends their turn inside, not under the effect of apathy, makes a willpower resistance test. Failure applies the apathy effect to the creature. And apathy, the target is immobilized. After 1 round passes under the effect of apathy, the target must make a willpower resistance test. Success removes apathy, failure stuns the creature for 1 round, removes apathy, and makes the creature immune to further effects from Spot of Apathy until the end of combat. Zone of Fear. All units in a 3x3 zone must pass a willpower resistance test or immediately move out of the zone, even if they are stunned or immobilized. This movement triggers attacks of opportunity from the Navigator's allies that have passed the test or that are outside the zone. Touch of Anger. All enemies in a 1-cell radius around the target point must pass a willpower resistance test. Those who fail, even if they are stunned or immobilized, immediately gain an extra turn where they attack their allies. Every time an enemy becomes a target of this Navigator power again during the same combat, they gain a stackable plus 20 bonus to willpower resistance test against it. So I was leaning into the temporary wound effects that she gets from being an officer, so get back in the fight would pair well with that. But these other buffs that last until the end of combat are just too good, I think. I'm going to do Reveal the Light. The target ally gains a bonus to their willpower and toughness until the end of the combat. I mean, most of these seem really good. I mean, Eye of Oblivion seems pretty great. So every enemy the Navigator has in their line of sight has its dodge and hit chance reduced by a percentage. Or sorry, not by a percentage. Minus 2 times Navigator's perception bonus. Still pretty solid. A Master of Time also synchronizes really well with the Officer archetype. And we have 2 officers, so she get a ton of stacking willpower. So Mind Over Matter is also interesting. So you basically make all of her resistance tests with willpower instead. And her health will also be dictated by her willpower. There was another one. Yeah, Pass Unscathed uses Perception instead of Agility for her dodge chance. Let's do Mind Over Matter. Because her willpower is already pretty solid. Then again, Eye of Oblivion's also great. Maybe I'll grab that first, and then Mind Over Matter next time. I have to write that down, so I don't forget. I probably won't, because it's so good. But we'll see. Alright, Argenta. Characteristic. Oh, we can't select Ballistic. I think Perception's better than Agility in this case. It reduces an enemy's dodge chance against her attacks. So I don't know why I would take Agility over Perception. Where is the flip? Well, let's see what we have down here first. It's a little circumstantial, but it seems pretty good. Especially if I lean into the Flamer skills. How much does the flame weapon attack cost right now? Alright, so the Flamer's shot is 2 AP. Okay, so we can reduce that by 1. I don't know if I want to commit to a weapon type this early on, but let's go ahead and do it. So, Flame Weapon Expert. Flame Weapon attacks cost minus 1 AP less to use, 1 AP minimum, so the base attack is still going to cost 1, but the Flame Spray will be reduced down to 1. I'm guessing once we find better Flamers, we'll have more Flamer attacks. Alright, Adira gets an ability. A few options here. So the operator options down to tactical knowledge. So precise attack. For the next attack against a target affected by an exploit, that target's cover efficiency will be reduced by a percentage. This attack will have a % hit chance. A joint analysis. Until the operative's next turn, their allies' attacks also remove exploits and deal plus intelligence bonus more damage. Perfect spot. While on cover, the operative gains plus 25% cover efficiency, plus 15 perception, and plus 15 ballistic skill. This effect lasts until the operative moves does not stack. Well, she doesn't need ballistic skill, so I feel like that'd be partially wasted. Intimidation. The operative's next non-area attack inflicts the intimidated effect on the first target hit by the attack, and all enemies in a 5-cell radius around that target. The damage dealt by intimidated enemies is reduced by a percentage until the operative's next turn. This negative effect is doubled for enemies with less than a percentage armor. Tactical knowledge. The operative removes minus 1 exploit from each enemy in a 5-cell radius around a point within 10 cells from the operative. If there is only one enemy in the area, the operative removes all exploit stacks from that enemy. All allies gain a % armor until the end of combat. If 4 more exploits are removed, the operative gains a number of removed exploits damage until the end of combat. Foreboding. Creates an area that lasts until the start of the Psyker's next turn. All allies within that area gain a % dodge. Their dodge chance cannot be less than a %. Perfect timing. All allies that are currently affected by any of the Psyker's powers gain the perfect timing effect. In perfect timing, when an ally under this effect dodges or parries an attack, this ally has a weapon capable of reaching the attacker and has an attack that costs 1 or less AP. That ally immediately counterattacks with this weapon, and the perfect timing effect fades. That seems pretty great. Say prescience, but it's probably prescience, or saying that wrong. I'm gonna say prescience. The target gains intelligence, perception, fellowship, and willpower until the end of combat. That also seems great. Just straight bonuses. A prophetic intervention. Whenever an ally suffers damage that would make them fall unconscious, the Psyker immediately gains an extra turn. During that turn, the Psyker can only use prophetic intervention. This power can only be used under these conditions. A prophetic intervention restores the allies' wounds to the amount they had before the attack that triggered the intervention. However, the Psyker's psi rating is reduced by -1 until the end of combat. This power can only be used by Psykers with a psi rating of 3 or higher. Precognition. Once per round, the Psyker's next turn is moved up by 2 turns in the round initiative sequence. This ability may allow the Psyker to have 2 turns in 1 round. Also seems great. Dominate. The target must pass a willpower resistance test with a -5 penalty, -5 times psi rating penalty. Or at their next turn, they will spend all their movement points to move as close as possible toward the Psyker. They can act as normal, but all their MP are spent on moving toward the Psyker. At the end of their turn, the target must make it the willpower resistance test again, otherwise they remain under this effect. Psychic Assault. Everyone within a 7-cell radius cone in front of the Psyker suffers Psychic Shriek damage, is forced to make a willpower resistance test. All targets that fail that test are stunned until the Psyker's next turn. Sensory Deprivation. The target makes a willpower resistance test. If it succeeds, the target is merely blinded until the start of the Psyker's next turn. If the target fails the test, they become blinded and suffer an additional penalty to all characteristics. Reduced by blindness and must make a willpower resistance test at the end of each turn. The first success makes them just blinded, and second success removes the blinded effect. Mind Bond. At any time until the end of combat, the target of Mind Bond makes perception, intelligence, willpower, or fellowship tests, using either theirs or the Psyker's stats, whichever is higher at the moment. Okay, that could be useful. A Mind Rupture. The target makes a willpower resistance test. If that test fails, the target immediately attacks its allies. After, the target suffers damage from Psychic Shriek, and the willpower is reduced by that formula until the end of combat. If the test succeeds, the target just suffers damage from Psychic Scream, and the willpower is reduced until the end of combat. Divination. Divination specializes in gleaning information and using it to turn fortune in your favor. Diviners find useful insights everywhere, manifesting extrasensory abilities and glimpsing the future. Biomancy. Biomancy focuses on manipulating living flesh and biological processes. Biomancers can heal wounds and alter physical characteristics. Telepathy. Pretty sure we've read this already. Telepaths are psychers whose mental expertise lies in contacting and controlling the minds of others. With a single thought, a telepath can tear away his foe's sanity, induce states of numbing terror, or possess his victims' thoughts and mold their actions as if they were his own. Pyromancy. A pyromancer is a master of flame, a psyker who is able to create searing infernos out of thin air. Pyromancy is one of the most spectacular and destructive forms of psychic ability, and those who face a pyromancer in combat are oft reduced to naught but a pile of charred bones. Saintic powers. A concentration of faith, saintic powers are used by pious psychers to protect allies and smite heretics. So I like the prescience. Foreboding also seems pretty good. Let's go foreboding. So it creates an area that lasts until the start of the Psyker's next turn. All allies within that area gain a % to dodge. Their dodge chance cannot be less than a percentage. You know, we can grab this one instead and still get perfect timing after. So let's do pre-science. The target gains intelligence, perception, fellowship, and willpower until the end of a combat. I'm not sure why tech use is the recommended one. I guess because her perception's high, but I may just lead into lore warp. Alright, Abelard. Choose a characteristic. Toughness. He has more things that scale with toughness than weapon skill. I guess just like my main character, eventually that'll be locked out, and we'll go to weapon skill after that. And a talent. Yeah, we'll do Stronger Together. So our allies, excluding Xenos in the current party, gain +5 to the same characteristic as was chosen for Humanity's Finest, which for him was Toughness. So everybody in the party, currently, gets +5 to Toughness. Just a good buff for everybody to have. He got an ability last level up, so cool. Alright, well I'm going to call it here, and next time, we will finally head towards Rycad Minoris. Got a little sidetracked with the level ups, but now that we've read everything for, well, most of the classes, then the future level ups should be a lot shorter. But, for now, I'm going to call it here. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you guys in the next one.